Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Dear Masuma with myself Sana Araji and Masuma Ja'far. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Now we've been answering a few of our viewers' questions and queries on this show, and we have a question or a letter from someone who says, I have depression and this makes it incredibly hard for me to keep hold of my faith. I always struggle around religious environments and I just don't feel like I belong in this community. I find religion often mundane, mostly the general practices, because I almost do them in a robotic sense. I've been told to fast for X amount of days, read certain ayahs from the Holy Quran, etc. It's just not working for me. I need spiritual upliftment. Could you tell me what you think I should do, because I really don't want to lose my faith?
Wow. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, she recognises that she has depression. I'm assuming that this is a mental health illness which she has sought help from a professional. So she's been to her doctor and is under some sort of medication or therapy.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important because just like any physical illness, mental illness is a reality, and it needs to be handled in the same way. You wouldn't have a physical illness of some sort and just let it be. So it's like, you know, for example, God forbid you broke your arm or something, you wouldn't just say, well, it'll just fix itself.
Of course.
You would actually go to the doctor and you know, get the treatment that's required. So in the same way, mental illness needs to have the treatment that's required, and it's important that she's, you know, she has been to some sort of profession and has been seen for that. If she hasn't, I urge her to go and see a professional for that.
Of course, yeah.
She says she's struggling. She struggles around religious environment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what she means by that. Is she talking about when she goes to the mosque, the local community? Because the very next sentence, it continues on to say that she feels like she doesn't belong in the community.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that when she's talking about the religious environment, she's talking about the mosque environment and the community.
Possibly, yeah.
But a lot of the religious centres are not necessarily Islamically orientated, they're very culturally orientated. And that may be what she's struggling with.
Maybe, yeah. You're right.
Especially if she's been brought up in a different culture. So she may belong to the same group, but she may be brought up in, like, for example, you know, if the rest of the community is from, say, Pakistan or India or Africa or wherever, and she's been born and bred in the UK, although she identifies with them, her culture will be different, and therefore she may feel like she doesn't belong. So if I'm correct in that assumption, then she needs to separate religion and culture and recognise that the problem is with the culture, not the religion.
Right, okay.
And that's really important to recognise.
Yeah.
And the reason I say this is because if she goes for ziyarah or umrah or hajj or something like that, she would be in a religious environment where, even though there are different cultures there, the spirituality of the place where you are and the holy personality that's there overcomes all of the cultural deficiencies that are there.
Yeah.
So it would be good for her to go to a ziyarah or an umrah or something like that, to actually live that spirituality from and sort of feed off the spirituality, the positive spirituality from the holy personality that's there. Because one of the things that she talks about is that she needs a spiritual upliftment. The easiest way to get a spiritual upliftment is to get it from these holy personalities, which we're so blessed to have in our lives.
Definitely, yeah.
So, and I think once she feels that, then she knows what she's looking for. Because a lot of the times we want a connection, a spiritual upliftment, we want some sort of spirituality, but we really don't know what that means or how that feels, or I won't know when I get it because I don't know what I'm looking for. So if she's actually been to ziyarah where she's connected to, and it could be any of the ziyarahs, you know, they all have their their spirituality in it. If she's been to to a ziyarah of the Aima, of any of the holy personalities, and connected to that personality, then even when she comes back here, she can still connect to that personality. And that's the beauty of making that connection there and then bringing it to your hometown. So that will help with the spiritual upliftment that she's looking for.
Also, there are, I know some people say, like, when you go to funerals and things like that, that can spiritually uplift you as well, because you're kind of understanding, like, the life and the death and the crossing over, and then kind of appreciation of living, and that it's our soul that really matters. So sometimes you can reach even more of a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through other people's like deaths. And I know that sounds quite sad, but sometimes we have to be reminded, and we sometimes forget about death, would you say? So if you can't afford to maybe go for ziyarah, there are kind of maybe other ways perhaps you could get that. Even I know you can go on, and like I know with Imam Hussein TV you can get the coverage of the shrine, so you might not physically be there, but you could be there spiritually with them. No,
for sure. So and even just doing the ziyarah from home, like I say, you don't have to physically be there, you just need to connect to them. I truly believe that you go for ziyarah when they invite you, and that's when you're ready for some sort of growth in yourself. Because as hosts, they will provide something which you're ready to take on, and that's why they've invited you. And we have numerous hadiths which talk about the least that you will get is the money that you've invested in that ziyarah. So again, if money is what's putting you off, if you have the money to actually pay for the ticket, know that that money will come back. So obviously you have to have the money to pay for the ticket in the first place, which is a difficulty. But again, if they invite you, they will find a way to bring you to them. So I think it's about me making the niyyah that I want to go and asking them to invite me when I'm ready for that invitation. That's important. Secondly, like you said, you don't have to go there. You can make that connection from here. So just reciting ziyarah and actually connecting to the Aima through the ziyarah, reciting a salawat and gifting it to them and connecting to them. Again, it's about getting the spiritual upliftment by connecting to them and feeding off their spirituality is what helps. I think, and because sometimes we need to get it from someone else. We don't have it within ourselves.
Of course,
so that really helps in any way you can connect to them. So it may just be, reciting sort of 14 salawats to the 14 Masumeen, but actually doing it with presence of heart and presence of mind. So actually taking a little bit of time and gifting each salawat to each of the Masumeen and thinking about connecting to that Masumeen. Or it may be one specific Masumeen that you actually connect to and concentrating on that one and talking to that one. Or it may just be, talking to our living Imam and connecting through him and building off his spirituality. Because again, for him, you don't have to go anywhere. He's present. He's we just are not able to see him. So actually connecting to our living Imam would be very, very powerful. Sometimes you can connect to God directly. So there's lots of different ways. So you have the means of doing it through the holy personalities, or you can do it directly to God himself. So, and I think a lot of the times we think that we can only talk to God when we're reciting our salah, or when we're reciting the Holy Quran, or but we can actually have a conversation with God on a one-to-one and actually just talk to him like I'm talking to you now. So it's like, for instance, when I've had a really heavy counselling session, I will offload to God. That way I'm keeping the confidentiality of the person, and I'm able to offload anything that I've taken on from that session as well. So God becomes my counsellor.
Subhanallah.
And it really works, because it helps you to offload. Secondly, it actually he tells you how you're supposed to take this forward, what are the next steps, what I should do, and it's really beautiful. And a lot of the times when I tell people to talk to God, they say, but God already knows. Yes, he does, but I don't know how important that thing is. So when I'm talking to God, I'm actually realizing how important that thing that I'm talking about is to me, and how I'm looking at it and how I'm thinking about it. And when I talk to him, then I can hear in my heart what he's telling me if I open my heart up to him. So it's like when someone comes to me for counselling, I'm just a sounding board for them. It's literally them talking and letting it out. And I will ask the relevant questions for them to come to a realization.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I can't give them the answers because I'm not living their life. I don't know what will work for them, what won't. I only have the part of the story that they've told me. And even that, it's very much the way that they're looking at it. So I don't even know the reality of the story. God knows the reality of the story. He knows the whole story, not just part of it. In fact, he probably knows more than I do about it. So when I tell God, he can actually give me the answers.
SubhanAllah.
And so, you know, it's really beautiful to have that sort of connection with him. And that way, then, slowly, you stop relying on others and you only rely on God. And when you stop relying on others, then you're no longer a needy from others.
Yeah.
And therefore, at that time, then you become much more relaxed. And I think then building those links with the community is much easier because your expectation isn't from the community, it's from God.
SubhanAllah, yeah. No, it's true, yeah.
Yeah? So she says she doesn't belong in this community. And it may be because she has certain expectations from the community, which are not being fulfilled.
Okay.
So if she builds her relationship with God, and there's actually a beautiful hadith by Imam Ali alayhi salam, where he says, he mentions about how if we can build our relationship with God, then God will sort out all our other relationships.
SubhanAllah.
It's beautiful, and it's you know, and I'm totally in control of my relationship with God, whereas I'm not in control with my other relationships, because if I have a relationship with you, it depends on how you interact with me.
Yeah.
Whereas God is totally open to me all the time and loving to me, and he's never selfish and biased and so forth. So my relationship with God, I am totally in control of. I choose what sort of relationship to have with God. He's totally there all the time. Whereas with my relationship with you, you and I are both in control. It's very difficult because if you behave a certain way, or if you're not around, or if you don't respond in a certain... Do you see?
Yeah, no, I understand.
So to build a relationship with God is much, much easier if I look at it from a logical perspective.
It's flexible because it's constant 24/7 whenever you want.
It's not because he's busy or he can't give me time, or
he's
exhausted, or he's biased. He's not selfish, or So, but at the same time, to have a relationship with an entity that is not physically in front of me is difficult. So it's recognizing that, but also logically recognizing that realizing that he is there, and having those conversations, and actually not just having the conversations in my mind, but actually talking to him out loud.
Okay, yeah.
Will really help. Once I've built that relationship, then when I go into the community, my expectation is not from the community, it's from God. So I'll go in with a different frame of mind.
Okay,
I will go in maybe to see what I can do for the community rather than what they can do for me, because now I want to serve Allah through serving the community.
I see, yeah. And also you can do things for charities and things like that. So you can say, I'm doing it for the sake of Allah, and that will also increase your kind of spiritual connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you're doing something for others, but for
Allah.
and
not
so
your
for yourself.
Expectation is from Allah, not from others.
Yeah.
So you may go in as a volunteer, you may go in as, doing something that may help, or you may
raise money for orphans.
Exactly.
Anything.
Exactly. So that will really, really help as well. You'll start making a lot more friends, because again, those opportunities will open up because you've sorted out your relationship with God, so God will help you with other relationships. And that will then make him or her feel that they belong, which as human beings we need to feel we belong to something or somewhere, and that will really help. She talks about the fact that the religion is, it could be a he as well, talks about the fact that the religion is very mundane and mostly done in a robotic sense.
Yeah, she does, yeah.
I don't think that's because they're depressed. I think that is for most people, which is really, really sad. And again, it's recognizing what the religious practices are there for. So doing it with presence of heart and presence of mind, realizing that you're actually who you're talking to, what the benefit of that is, will actually change the way then you look at it. So actually just taking a little bit of time to prepare for each of the things that you're going to do. So having the right intention. So if I'm going to go and pray, actually taking just a few seconds, not even minutes, a few seconds to actually think about, what am I going to do now? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Instead of just going straight into the prayer and doing the actions of the prayer and saying what needs to be said, but with my mind somewhere else totally.
Which is very common. That happens, and everyone who has busy, or most people have busy, hectic lives, so it's very easy to kind of fall into that where it's just like, okay, I'm just going to pray, I'm not going to think why, or I'm not going to take time after it, I'm just going to do my salah, and get up and do what's next. So yeah.
And it becomes very much a tick box exercise, and therefore yes, you've fulfilled the obligation, but you've not actually got the benefit from it. So it's important to recognize that there is benefit to be gained. All I need to do is just be present and build that connection.
And I know she says about people have said to her to fast X amount of days, but I know with some people that's actually a really good way for them to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because you kind of abstain from all things and your focus is just maintaining that fast without sinning. So I think perhaps when she does have that connection, that might help her with after she figures out her connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No, for sure. But I think when it comes to someone who's suffering from a mental illness and you're told, oh, you need to fast this many days, or you need to recite this Quran, this verse in the Quran, a lot of the times subconsciously you're telling the person that their mental illness isn't real, and it's because of the lack of communication or the lack of connection that they have with God. That's why they feel the way that they feel. And that's not fair.
That's not, no.
So, and even if you're not saying it, that's how the other person may be taking it. And that's maybe why she's feeling really uneasy with that or uncomfortable with that, because it's like, it's not helping. But because you're not looking at it in the way that, we should look at it. So it's a perspective of, in any life that I have, in any situation that I have, if I can build my connection with Allah, then it will help me become more content and more relaxed and more happy and more, my life will be a lot easier.
Yeah.
So mentally it will be easier, physically it will be easier, spiritually it will be easier. So I'm not saying that you have a mental illness or physical illness because of your lack of communication with God, but what I'm saying is, even though you have these illnesses, your communication with God or your connection with God will help. It may not get rid of the illness, but it will help you cope with the illness.
Yeah.
So, yes, fasting, reciting the Holy Quran, reciting salawat, any mustahabat will help if it builds your connection with God. If it doesn't build your connection with God, then there's no point doing that to a certain extent. Obviously, like when you're reciting the Holy Quran, even if you feel it's not affecting you, it will affect your soul, because the words of Allah will always affect your soul.
Yeah.
But if it's a mustahab action that you're going to do, it's good to actually look at which one you connect with, which one helps your connection to Allah, and trying to figure out which one it is. And it may be different at different times. It's like food. Sometimes you want pizza, sometimes you want, biryani, sometimes you want, cello kebab. It depends on how you're feeling and what your body wants. In the same way, your soul has different requirements and different loves and wants and desires. So sometimes you may connect through the Holy Quran, sometimes you may connect through a dua, sometimes you may connect through the Tasbih of Bibi Fatima alayhi salam, sometimes you may connect through reciting mustab salahs, sometimes you may connect through fasting. And it's recognizing that and doing that, and sometimes pushing yourself to do things for the pleasure of Allah may feel uncomfortable, but at the end of it you feel really content. And recognizing that contentment is different to happiness is really important as well.
SubhanAllah. And sometimes you get that inner voice inside of you that's telling you, you should do this because Allah will be pleased. But then you have something within yourself that's like, oh, but it's so tiring, or it's going to be too difficult. And it's kind of battling that. It's like thinking, okay, let me push, which sometimes is with me, it could happen to me at times, where you kind of have to push those wants for yourself aside to sacrifice for the better good, or for the sake of your religion and others.
But it's actually following your wants, but you're following your spiritual wants rather than your physical wants.
Exactly.
So it's like listening to the soul rather than the body.
And it's these two that sometimes are really, they're battling, and they're sometimes difficult to separate from one another. So but alhamdulillah, inshallah, hopefully this has helped our viewer and anyone else who's also listening and has similar issues. Please, again, do call or send your queries and worries to us, and we will again put them forward to Masuma. And thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Dear Masuma. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.